I want you to do something before we go any further. Pull out your wallet, find a bill, any bill, and hold it in your hand. Look at it. Really look at it. It's paper, linen and cotton, technically, but close enough to paper that it doesn't matter. On one side, a dead president. On the other, a pyramid with an eye on top of it, which is either profound symbolism or the strangest design decision in the history of graphic arts. Now read what it says at the top. Federal Reserve Note. Not United States dollar, not backed by gold, not redeemable for anything. Federal Reserve Note. A note is a promise. That's all it is. A legally enforceable IOU. And the question that almost no one stops to ask is this. Who made that promise? When did they make it? And what exactly are they promising? Most people carry that bill their whole lives and never once ask. Franklin Sanders asked. He asked it in 1974. Reading late at night in Tennessee, and he didn't stop asking for 30 years.
By the time the federal government was done with him, he had put $60 million worth of silver coins into American circulation. And he had done it legally, or so he believed, with every fiber of his being, right up until the morning 12 armed federal agents walked through his front door. This is the story of a man who decided to compete with the United States government on the question of what money actually is. It did not go well for him.
Franklin Sanders grew up in the American South. He wasn't a banker. He wasn't an economist. He had a theology degree. In the early 1970s, he started really reading about money. He read Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, the clause that says, "No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts." He read it once. Then he read it again. Then he sat with it for a long time. Because that clause is still in the Constitution. Nobody repealed it. And yet, the dollar hasn't been backed by gold since 1971, when Richard Nixon went on television on a Sunday night and ended the gold standard in 15 minutes. No congressional vote, no constitutional amendment, no national debate, just a speech. And the next morning, the world's reserve currency was backed by nothing except the government's word that it was worth something. Sanders read about what happened before that. He read about the Federal Reserve, created in 1913, the same year the income tax was created.
He read about the history of paper money, the Continental dollar, which collapsed so completely after the Revolutionary War that the phrase "not worth a continental" entered the American language as a synonym for worthless. He read and read and read. And what he concluded, what he became more and more certain of with every year that passed, was that the modern American dollar was, in his words, unconstitutional. That the Federal Reserve was a private institution printing public money. That every American carrying a paper bill was, without knowing it, participating in a system that the founders had explicitly tried to prevent. Now, you can agree with that argument, or you can disagree with it. Serious economists disagree with it. Serious constitutional scholars disagree with it. But Sanders didn't just write about it. He didn't just argue about it on the radio. He decided to build an alternative. And that decision is what changed everything.
In 1998, Sanders founded the National Organization for the Repeal of the Federal Reserve Act and the Internal Revenue Code. That name didn't fit on a coin, so the product got a simpler name. The Liberty Dollar. Real silver, real weight, minted with care, stamped with an eagle, and marked with a dollar value on the face. $10, $20, $50, $100. The logic behind the numbers was straightforward. An ounce of silver in 1998 was worth about $5 on the open market. Sanders priced his 1-ounce coin at $10, double the silver spot price, which gave it room to hold value as inflation pushed the dollar down. Because that's what inflation does.
The dollar you had in 1971, the year Nixon ended gold backing, is worth about 17 cents today. 17 cents. On the same bill, with the same dead president, the silver in a coin from that same year is worth more now than it was then. That's the entire argument for the Liberty Dollar in one comparison. Sanders didn't just sell the coins from a website. He built a distribution network. He trained volunteer ambassadors, ordinary people in towns across America who would take Liberty Dollars and spend them at local businesses, diners, hardware stores, farmers markets, gas stations.
Some businesses accepted them, some didn't, but enough did that the coins started moving. By 2006, Sanders claimed over 100,000 Americans had used the Liberty Dollar. By 2007, $60 million worth of Liberty Dollars were in circulation. $60 million, minted out of a facility in Evansville, Indiana, by a man with a theology degree. The United States government was watching all of this. They had been watching for a while. In September 2006, the United States Mint published an official consumer alert. It was calm in tone, professional, government language. It said that the Liberty Dollar was medallic reproductions, collectible objects, and not legal currency. It said that using Liberty Dollars in commerce could violate federal counterfeiting statutes. It said that persons who did so could be subject to criminal prosecution. Sanders read every word of it, and then he wrote a legal rebuttal. His argument was precise. Counterfeiting means creating a deceptive copy of something that already exists. His coins didn't say United States of America on them. They said Liberty Dollar. They didn't have the Federal Reserve seal. They had an eagle. Nobody, he argued, could look at a Liberty Dollar and genuinely mistake it for a U.S. government coin. The design was different. The name was different. The entire philosophy behind it was different. Competing with the dollar, he said, is not the same as faking the dollar. He believed that distinction would protect him. He believed it completely, so he kept minting. He kept distributing. He kept training ambassadors and shipping coins and building the network. In 2007, he released a coin featuring Ron Paul, the Texas congressman known for his Federal Reserve criticism, which sold out almost immediately. The Ron Paul coin got national press coverage. And that press coverage made it impossible for the government to keep looking the other way. The warning had come in September 2006. The response came 14 months later. It was a Wednesday morning in Evansville, Indiana. Normal sky, normal temperature, normal Wednesday. At Liberty Dollar headquarters, the staff were already at their desks. Then 12 federal agents arrived. FBI, Secret Service, both. They had warrants, multiple warrants, and they had boxes, a lot of boxes. They moved through the building methodically. They took the silver coins, they took the gold coins, they took the copper coins, they took the minting equipment, they took the business records, they took the customer lists, every name, every address, every person who had ever bought a Liberty Dollar. $7 million in precious metals. Gone. Sanders wasn't in the building that morning. He was in Tennessee. He got the call and drove to Evansville. And when he arrived, the place had been cleaned out. The charges were announced shortly after. Counterfeiting United States currency, mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The counterfeiting charge was the one that stung most because Sanders had spent 9 years arguing publicly, loudly, with legal citations that his coins were not counterfeits. They had a different name, a different design, a completely different legal basis. But the federal government's position was not complicated. Only the United States government has the right to issue currency. Your coins say dollar on them. Your coins are designed to function as money. That makes them ours, prosecute. The argument Sanders had been making for nearly a decade, that argument was now going to be settled in a federal courtroom. The trial came in March 2011, 4 years after the raid. 4 years during which Sanders had no coins, no business, and no silver. The central legal question was one that sounds simple and is anything but. Is this counterfeiting or is this competition? Counterfeiting means you are making a fraudulent copy of something that already exists, designed to deceive. Competition means you are making an alternative, something different, something that stands alongside the original and lets the market decide. Sanders said, competition. I never hid what these were. The name is right there on the face of the coin. The government said, counterfeiting. The word dollar on a coin that is not issued by the United States government is inherently deceptive. Federal law doesn't require actual deception, they argued. It requires the possibility of confusion. The jury deliberated, and the jury agreed with the government. Guilty on all 4 counts. In 2012, Sanders was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. The $7 million in silver and gold was formally forfeited. He never recovered it. Here is the thing that stays with you when you look back at this case. The Liberty Dollar never successfully deceived anyone who actually looked at it. Every person who received one knew it was a Liberty Dollar. The name was stamped into the metal. But the law does not ask whether deception occurred. It asks whether deception was possible, and on that narrow question, that single legal hinge, the court ruled against him. 9 years of minting, $60 million in circulation, 100,000 users, and in the end, it came down to a single word stamped on a silver coin, dollar. That word cost him everything.
While Sanders was being investigated, something else was happening. In 2008, a white paper appeared online under the name Satoshi Nakamoto, 9 pages. A proposal for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. No silver, no mint, no coins at all. No name, no address, no building in Evansville, Indiana. Just code. And a question that was, at its core, identical to the one Sanders had been asking for 30 years. Who controls money? Sanders answered, nobody should. Here is my silver coin to prove it. Satoshi answered, nobody will. Here is my algorithm to ensure it. One of them went to federal prison. The other is anonymous, untouchable, and worth, depending on the day, somewhere between 50 billion and nobody actually knows. The difference between them was not the question. The question was the same. The difference was exposure. Sanders put his name on everything. His face, his building, his employees' names in the customer files. He thought transparency was his shield. He thought if he operated in plain sight, openly, legally documented, the government could not call it fraud. He was wrong about that. Here is what Sanders was actually testing. Underneath all the silver and the theology and the constitutional citations, he was testing whether a private citizen in a free country can legally disagree with the government about what money is.
Not theoretically, not in a law journal, in practice, in circulation, in $60 million worth of silver coins changing hands in diners and hardware stores. The answer, as of 2012, is no. Not if you act on it at scale. Not if you put the word dollar on the thing you built. Not if you make it easy enough to use that 100,000 ordinary people actually use it. The government did not prosecute the idea. Ideas are legal. You can believe the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional every day of your life, and nobody will arrest you for it. They prosecuted the mint. They prosecuted the building, the equipment, the customer list, the name on the door. And there is a lesson in that distinction worth more than any silver coin. The question of who controls money is not settled. It is more unsettled now than it was the morning those 12 agents walked into Evansville. Sanders just happened to ask it too early, and in metal instead of code. All right, I'm out. Hit subscribe. It's free, which is rare at our big age. If you don't, nothing will happen. Except you'll keep seeing the same 3 boring videos every day. Your choice. Subscribe. We'll make it worth it.